Good afternoon, or depending on where you are, good morning. On behalf of Harvard Law School, the Veterans Legal Clinic of the WilmerHale Legal Services Center, the Law School Armed Forces Association, and DAV, I'm delighted to welcome you to the 2025 DAV Distinguished Speakers Series. I'm Daniel Nagin, Director of the Veterans Legal Clinic in the Legal Services Center of Harvard Law School. First, we are profoundly indebted to DAV for its generous support of and partnership with the Veterans Clinic in so many ways over the years. The clinic provides pro bono representation to veterans across a number of critical areas. We could not be more honored to collaborate with DAV in this endeavor. We're also deeply grateful for DAV's sponsorship of this Distinguished Speaker Series. Today's event marks the 11th convening of the Speaker Series at Harvard Law School. The series brings together leaders, advocates, and other voices in order to shine a spotlight on the unmet needs of the veterans community and also to create a platform for both conversation and action. We have an amazing lineup of speakers today who will discuss from personal experience an incredibly important and timely topic, the great harm caused by wrongful discharges, but also how seeking a discharge upgrade can provide a pathway to justice. Moderating today's discussion will be my Harvard Law School colleague, Dana Montalto, a trailblazing advocate and a national leader in discharge upgrade law. Dana is a senior clinical instructor, lecturer on law, and associate director of the Veterans Legal Clinic. But first, I'm delighted to introduce Barry Jesenowski, DAV National Adjutant, who will offer opening remarks. Mr. Jesenowski was appointed National Adjutant in June 2023. As DAV's chief executive, he leads the nearly 1 million member strong organization, overseeing all staff and operations and charting DAV's continued growth and impact. Mr. Jesenowski is a service-connected Marine Corps veteran of the Persian Gulf War era. His commitment to his fellow veterans runs deep. And indeed, the breadth and depth of his experience and expertise are truly remarkable. Prior to being named National Adjutant, Mr. Jesenowski served in numerous other roles within DAV, spanning everything from representing veterans before VA to supervising one of DAV's largest offices, and from serving as DAV's Director of Human Resources to being appointed Executive Director of DAV's Service and Legislative Office, where he served as DAV's principal spokesperson at VA, Congress, and the White House. We are honored that this champion of the veterans community and distinguished and dynamic leader is part of our program today. I'm pleased to turn the proceedings over to Mr. Jesenowski.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Dan, and thanks to you and your entire team for all that you guys do. I won't be long. As everyone here is, I'm very eager to hear from our panelists. Their conversation promises to provide valuable insight into the complexities of how our nation characterizes service. From this, I hope we all learn more about how we can best take care of our veterans. But first, I do want to emphasize how much of an honor it is, again, for DAV to support the work that Harvard's Veterans Legal Clinic does. When a service branch gets it wrong, you know how to make it right. When a veteran needs help, you help. Just this past year alone, you've served hundreds of veterans. Since our partnership began in 2016, that number is in the several thousands. Your free legal help for veterans covers a wide number of legal issues. But in keeping with today's topic, I'd like to touch on your work with discharge upgrades. Each case is different, and they aren't easy to argue by any means. And I know that from some small amount of personal experience many years ago. They require a relentless spirit and a commitment to meticulous, often tedious research. It's not the stuff of riveting courtroom dramas, usually, but it matters. It restores dignity and changes lives. Like that of one post-9/11 Marine veteran from Boston. Right before a deployment to Afghanistan, he lost a friend to suicide. Then on that deployment, he was severely hazed by two Marines who were supposed to be his leaders and look out for his well-being. None of that was considered when he failed a drug test for a one-time use of hashish in Afghanistan. Instead, he was kicked out of the military with an other than honorable discharge, an OTH. He struggled out of uniform. He had service-connected mental health issues. He couldn't access his GI Bill education benefits. But your team stepped in. You uncovered evidence in his favor. You found a report by an expert psychologist that detailed the trauma he suffered, and you petitioned for a discharge upgrade. When that petition was denied, you didn't relent. You fought. Your appeal got him his first discharge upgrade, a general under honorable conditions. But you didn't stop there. You continued to dig. You found new evidence that addressed the discharge board's questions. You refiled. You sat beside him and represented him during another board hearing. You supported him during the grueling questions the board had for him, and that effort paid off. He received an upgrade to a fully honorable discharge, a new future, one where he can access the benefits he has earned. All of that work, effort, and care for one veteran. This is your team's approach to every single case. It's easy to write someone off, especially when their behavior in a moment or a season of life doesn't appear to be consistent with the good order and discipline the military prides itself on. But as you've proven time and again, a person's service can't always be summed up by one page summary or a bad discharge. It's the military's version of a scarlet letter, frankly. So when the evidence demands a closer look, that's what you do. DAV is proud to support your work restoring the honor of good and faithful service to those who have earned it. Your pro bono work is world-class representation. It's a commitment to justice for people who have sacrificed and served their country. You give them the respect and the dignity they've earned as humans, and looking at the evidence, you fight to correct the record. Again, thank you, Dan, and your entire team for your partnership. Thank you for the important work that you do every day. I look forward to the conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jesnowski, and to the whole DAV team for your support for the work that we do in our clinic, and also for that introduction that perfectly captures our perspective about how you really can't sum up a veteran service with a single piece of paper about what they went through, but also that one piece of paper can mean so much for what their future looks like. I'm really honored to moderate this discussion today with 4 incredible individuals, all of whom are veterans who served our country, all of whom, for a variety of reasons, were separated with an unjust, less than honorable discharge, and all of whom then successfully navigated the discharge upgrade process so that the military now recognizes their service as fully honorable. Now, anyone who has interacted with the systems that separate service members, that upgrade discharges, or that grant access to veterans' benefits knows of their challenges and their flaws. And I'm really grateful today that we have the opportunity to hear from these 4 veterans who have experienced these systems firsthand and can offer their perspectives and their recommendations for change. So let me introduce them. First, I'll start with Annie Reyes. Annie served in the Navy from 2007 to 2009. She was improperly discharged under the now repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. She currently lives in Massachusetts with her wife and 2 kids and is starting an organization to help other older individuals and veterans in her community. Next, I'll introduce Kevin Monroe. Kevin served 2 enlistments in the Air Force from 1981 to 1989. He has been a long-haul truck driver for 33 years and has been married for 27 years. Next, Paul Bradley. Paul served in the United States Marine Corps from 2002 to 2006, including 2 combat deployments. He served after his discharge for many years in the fire department, but now that he has his honorable discharge, he's had the opportunity to go back to school and is currently pursuing his college degree. And last, let me introduce Steve Connor. Steve served in the Navy in the 1970s, and for the past 22 years, he has served as a veteran service officer for communities in Western Massachusetts. So not only has he had the opportunity to upgrade his own discharge, but he has been an incredible advocate for other veterans in seeking to upgrade their discharges. Thank you for being here today. So one of the unifying experiences of military service is the moment of joining, of becoming a service member. And so I want to start first with Kevin and ask you to share, why did you choose to join the military?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here to speak with you today. I'm completely humbled. I'm so honored to be amongst you intelligent, distinguished people. Well, I come from good stock. Let me say that. If I could just, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'll start a short timer for myself. Okay. So my dad was in the United States Coast Guard, and in the 50s he went to Boston. He was stationed in Detroit. He went to a dance at Wonderland Ballroom in Revere, and he met my mom. And I am the middle child of five, probably why I'm so sensitive. I have two brothers and on one side and the brother and the sister on the other side. I'm the middle child. Each one of my siblings was in the military. My oldest brother was in the Army. My second oldest brother was in the Navy. I was in the Air Force. My youngest brother is a Marine. And my sister is a registered nurse in Boston. So I come from good stock. Short, brief history. I was born in Detroit in the 1960s, raised there, good city. Everyone had a home. I walked by Motown records every day on my way to school. Didn't know it was history being made. From there, I lived in Vicksburg, Mississippi with my great grandparents. My father's grandparents raised me. They were honorable people, salt of the earth people with good stock, good morals, good values. From there, I moved to Boston with my mom, and I was raised in the projects in Mission Hill, and I went to school and graduated in Boston. From there, I worked at the Boston Gardens as a young man. I worked at the Celtics games with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish when they won the championship. I was, a vendor. I used to take drinks up and down the aisles. That's when I decided to join the military after I graduated high school. I had a chance to go to Wentworth University, but I chose to go in the Air Force because that's my family history. So that's just a brief history of where I come from, why I chose to serve. I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, very optimistic young man with plenty of vigor and guts. And I joined out of honor, commitment, patriotism to our country. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. And what an incredible family history of service. Paul, I want to ask you as well, what was the thing that motivated you to join the Marine Corps?
So I as well grew up in inner city Boston. I graduated high school from a small alternative school, ABCD University High School on Tremont Street in 2001. Uh, and then I signed up for classes. I was going to school at Bunker Hill Community College. And the planes crashing into the towers on September 11th of that year motivated me to join the Marine Corps. And and it was a whirlwind from there. I was 17 years old. Um, and I served all the way to the end of the enlistment just to find out that my conduct scores wasn't high enough for an honorable discharge. Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, I was motivated to, go fight for freedom, what I thought, for my country. And I had some of the best experiences and some of the worst of my life while serving in the Marine Corps.
Thank you. So I know there are a lot of reasons that people get in. I want to transition now to thinking about, since you all had 4 different experiences in the military, also that sort of universal experience of getting out of the military and what the separation and transition process looks like, especially for those who are having an involuntary separation. And so, Annie, can you talk a little bit about what was it like getting out of the military, and how did the transition prepare you or not for civilian life on the other side?
Hi, Dana. Thank you for having me, guys. I feel like the transition was pretty quick. From when I found out that I was going to get discharged until the time that I was actually set foot at home, I think maybe a month must have gone by, and it was so fast that it was kind of like making your head spin when you get here. It's like I don't understand what just happened, you know. But I know that because of that, the way that happened, I didn't get separated the same way that most people do, which is going through some. They do have like a transitions assistant programs, but this was one of the things that I was denied, supposedly because of the type of discharge that I had, and this is just something that was being repeated throughout. You know, every time I tried to do something, that was just what happened. So, having to have someone like you guys on your team is like really important, because when you do it by yourself, they don't really take you very seriously. Even when you do have help, they take quite a while to get to what they're supposed to be doing. So it's really daunting even to start looking for assistance after that. But I feel like it probably could have been covered better before I got discharged.
Mhm. Steve, can you weigh on this topic about transition as well?
Yes, hi. Yeah, and again, thank you for having me. I would say for my transition, unlike Annie, who wasn't looking to get out, I was looking to get out. I had a very up and down career in the military, in the Navy. Did very well in basic training and in my schooling. Went to my first assignment and I was doing well. Um, had culture shock like anybody else going to I went to Japan and was on an aircraft carrier and got to a point where I was really struggling, finding that this really wasn't what I had been told it was going to be. Some promises were broken, so I had some issues about that, but I had a real struggle with how to handle that because um, like Kevin, my family, my father served, all my uncles but one. I'm Irish Catholic. My brother served. My sister tried to serve. It was just what we did. And so there was a lot of pride involved with finding myself in a situation where I was like, wow, I'm really not the best military material. Um, and struggled with my time there. And then an incident happened, and that changed everything. So at that point, it was like I needed to get out. So for me, it was a matter I had left and came home on emergency leave. I lived with my grandfather, and I learned while I was over there that he had developed cancer, and they weren't sure if it was terminal or not. So I was given emergency leave to go back home for a couple of weeks, which I did. And then I just didn't return because it
Mhm.
was, I had a real struggle with the idea of returning to where I was. Um, and so I did unauthorized leave. I turned myself back in after 30 days, thinking that will stimulate me getting discharged. It didn't. They then attempted to send me back, and I got to the first airport and said, really sat and thought, all these things happening in my life, can I really go back um, to that situation with my grandfather and just all the things that were going on? And I decided I really wasn't in a position to go back. And I didn't, and was gone for a few more months. And then I turned myself in again. I had to wait a couple of months to see how things were going to work, but they finally had decided that they were going to let me go. So I then got out, and because my service wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of pride with leaving. So I just basically didn't wear the veteran tag and just came back and pretended I was never really gone anywhere. And I just tried to transition, and it was hard. It was hard to go from the military culture right into civilian culture, especially under my circumstances where I didn't want anybody to know anything. So not only did they not have any services for me, but I wasn't looking for them either. And I just wanted to get out.
Annie, for sharing all that. I want to transition to talking about the moments when you all decided to engage with the discharge upgrade process. And maybe Paul, I'll invite you to weigh in first. What was the process of upgrading your discharge like?
So originally, when I got out, I was having issues with post-traumatic stress. I didn't really know it at the time. But I found a program in Boston called There and Back Again, which kind of used more holistic practices, yoga, breathing, and that became implemental in my recovery. And the woman that started that, she was a JAG officer in the Army Reserves. She kept on prompting me to do the upgrade process, and through a roundabout way, got me in touch with the Harvard Veterans Legal Clinic, and they, looked at my paperwork and kind of were able to figure out what the best route is for their application process and getting it upgraded. And it was so daunting. There's no way I would have been able to do that without representation helping me along the way. I almost feel like the whole bureaucracy of the system is designed to wear the veteran out and just have them give up.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you got connected to us and to your parental
I'm very
attorneys.
grateful. Yeah, anything I could do to help you guys help other veterans.
Annie, same question for you. What was the process? You applied pro se on your own to start with, before then seeking out help. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I did try for a while myself, right as soon as I got out, which was like 2009 or something like that. And I was in California back then, and when I was doing all of that back there, it was basically me just doing it by myself. So I didn't really get any actual help until I moved over here to Massachusetts. And then that's when I actually saw like traction on it. So it was slow, and there was a big gap in between those two times of a good 10 years. So it was very, very slow and very intimidating because the paperwork was just insane. It was just everything is just it was like he just said, they make it so that you get so frustrated and you don't know what's going on. You just like, you know what, I give up. I'd rather not do this anymore. And then you're kind of just forgetting about it and trying to push it behind. But I think knowing that I had like backup really motivated me to keep going. So I'm also very appreciative for you guys.
Kevin, I see you nodding as well. Would you like to chime in?
Well, no, I was listening to what everyone's saying. I know what they mean. I understand exactly what they're talking about. I'm a firm believer that God will send an angel to help you, and it'll be the person that you least expect him to send. And he'll send that person when you need him the most. For me, it was Dana. He sent Dana to me. Dana is one of the most gracious people I've ever met. She's truly in love with her work. You need someone like that to go through this system to help you. For me, Um, I'll say this. There's no double check or back check where they can double check to make sure you belong in the system. They need that. They need something that double checks you. I went to what the name of the place? It was on Causeway Street, where veterans go to apply for their benefits. I don't know if it's still there. I went in and I told the lady, I need benefits, and she said, "Well, you're not eligible. You had a bad conduct discharge. We can't help you." There's no double check system. For me, I had an honorable discharge, so I should have been eligible for some sort of benefit. But I'm a very proud man. I'm a very serious man, and I'm proud. I'm too proud, and I walked out the door and never looked back. And like Annie said, it's a long, long haul between no help and help. And for me, it was never about money. This has never been about money for me. All I wanted was my name back. I wanted my good name restored. I felt that I had been wronged. I felt that the military just profiled me and psychologically tried to humiliate me, destroy me, make me commit suicide. That's where I was at. I don't know about anybody else. But when I got out, I wanted my name cleared, my good name. That's all I had is my name. And I wanted it clear. And even to today, I'm only at 60%. My name, I feel like I'm still not fully restored or fully healed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And I am so glad that we met and were able to help you in that process of clearing your name because you served honorably. Steve, you've been in the position to not only help with your own discharge upgrade, but also help other veterans. And I'd just love to hear your perspective on what do people really need to understand about how the military review boards work and what it looks like to get a discharge upgrade.
Yeah, it was a fascinating experience. The reason why I did it, I had gone many, many years without really identifying as a veteran. I had a little bit of help to go to school. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree and had just moved on with my life. I get the tag can be hard. Um, I had under, I had a general discharge. Um, but for me, it didn't matter. It mattered to my parents. That was important to them. But for me, I was like, hey, I tried, it didn't work. Let's just forget all about it. And then I was approached to apply for a job, to apply for this job. And I was working in a field with students and people with disabilities. And I was asked to try for this. And I went, well, I'm not a real veteran. I'm not, and my mayor insisted I try to apply. And I said, well, I have a general discharge. That probably gets in the way. And she goes, well, maybe you can change it. And I went, okay. So I went and looked into that and found this form that said, if you think you should have your discharge changed, this is how you do it. And not knowing what I was doing, just doing some research and finding out, I did it. I basically just didn't do the form though. I've got to prove to them that this discharge, I may not have been the best sailor there ever was, but all of it wasn't my fault. And I'm going to demonstrate that. So I basically just decided I was going to give them evidence. I was going to give them history. I was going to give them letters of recommendation that I got from other people who have worked with me. I had bosses who wrote support letters for me, also that I could do this work. And I didn't know how hard it was. I never dealt with it before. well, first shot, they gave it to me. It took 2 months and I was awarded an honorable discharge. The thing that didn't happen is I didn't ask them to change the narrative that I had. Um, and that was the one that mostly bothered my mother because it said I had a personality disorder. And so she really didn't like that. Well, she had then gone and I had done this work for a few years. I then got triggered and kind of spiraled out of control for about a year. I met with the marriage counselor I was trying to work with, and she basically determined that in her mind I had PTSD. And I said, well, no, no, no. I work with veterans with PTSD. I'm not one of them. And she then went through all the things. And basically, back in the day when I first left, it was shortly after I was sexually assaulted. And so that I finally had to admit to myself was, the reason I could never go back. I wasn't going to go back to where that happened. One of the worst things that ever happened to me, at the time, I then had buried it really well, but then it all just came back. And so I then changed again. I went and said, look, I've now been diagnosed. Can we get rid of this personality disorder? It wasn't a personality disorder. It was anxiety. It was fear. It was anger. It was all those things. And they then allowed that to go through too. So that I got it changed twice on my discharge. I've then, on my job, have helped at least a half a dozen veterans do the same thing. And it's a matter of you both have to look at it legally, like that all the things happen and make the case for your upgrade, but you also have to show that you're human and that as a human, it's not that hard to believe that bad things happen. And when you're 17, 18, 19 years old, you don't always make the best decisions. Um, I think me stepping away, not going back and facing it, for many years, I was embarrassed by it, but now I look back and go, how could I? There was nobody I could go and talk to. There was nobody there to give me therapy to make me understand what had happened. So that was my whole reason behind doing it, and that was the process I did. And um, I'm so grateful that you folks are over there in the Boston area helping these other folks to do it. We don't have that out this way. So, but you have ended up, one of the gentlemen I really worked hard with to get his upgrade, you guys took over, handled it, and did wonderful. And he's a very happy man, by the way.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Well, in some ways, it sounds like Western Massachusetts does have you. You're an incredible, obviously a born advocate, and that you can bring your own incredibly moving experiences and the lessons that you learned along the way to other veterans is just an incredible service to your community. And I'm really grateful that we get to partner with you in all these different ways.
Thank you.
So I know Kevin had mentioned a little bit about what sort of the motivation for seeking an upgrade and that feeling of getting one's name cleared when you get a discharge upgrade. I want to ask Annie, if you don't mind sharing, what did getting the upgrade mean to you? And what was that experience of getting the letter from the Navy recognizing your honorable service?
I would say it was a pretty bittersweet experience. There was part of me that was extremely glad that I was able to get the discharge upgraded, but still looking at the paper, it looked off because the way that they put down the the reasonings on your DD 214 about the reason for your separation. It still said something like secretarial authority or something. So it just felt like they're still kind of trying to figure out a way to make you look bad or make it seem like you did something wrong, just because they don't want it to look like they did something wrong. So it was kind of like waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of deal. Like, well, what else are they gonna? Because even having after having upgraded the discharge, I imagine there was going to be a lot more going back and forth about the benefits. So it really didn't do anything to like make me like entirely feel better until I had sat with it for a while and like realized like that I had actually made a pretty big win. And it made me a little more like it made me look at the whole thing a little bit more differently. But it was definitely not uh, something that I expected to take so long either. It was definitely also a very long process.
Absolutely, yeah. Paul, I know I just want to also ask you about the opportunity to get an honorable discharge because I know it also opened the door for you going back to college. Can you share a little bit about your experience of getting an honorable discharge and then accessing your benefits?
Yes, so after the Harvard Legal Clinic kind of built a case for me, it was um, kind of farmed out to a legal firm, and the attorneys kind of helped me further along with the process. And it it got filed. You had I believe they asked for a 15-year window, and I was getting very close to the end. Um, yeah, I got out in 2006, and I didn't have my Navy review board till I believe 2022. Um, and once again, the bureaucracy kind of just wore me down. If it wasn't for Alex, the attorney that was representing me, keeping that ball going, keeping that flame kindled, because I had a lot of other responsibilities going on at the time with the Boston Fire Department and my family having a significant change. If it wasn't for Alex keeping that ball going and keeping me on track with the process, yeah, there's no chances I would have been able to do that without him. Um, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And yes, you work through our Veterans Justice Pro Bono partnership where we help mentor and train and attorneys who volunteer their time to represent veterans. And that's how you met Alex through us. And just to make clear, there's this 15-year deadline for the Discharge Review Board, and you had to file your application beforehand, but you were so close that you didn't actually get your hearing until afterwards, but you got
Yes.
the honorable. Kevin, I also want to make sure we don't only focus on the Department of Defense and the service branch review boards, but also remember that the Department of Veterans Affairs also has a really important role to play in helping veterans, providing transition services and supportive services after they get out of the military. But that a lot of veterans with less than honorable discharges sort of struggle with the eligibility process. And you already shared about the opportunity where you tried to get help and were turned away. And I wanted to ask you to share a little bit more about what it was like when you had a DD 214 that didn't say honorable on it, even though you had a first honorable discharge, and sort of trying to access those benefits that are supposed to be there for people who served our country.
So let me say this first, that I am still honored to have been a member of the United States military. My dad just passed away at 90 years old. He's buried now with his wife who passed away about 5 years ago. And we just took his ashes to South Carolina to have them placed at a military gravesite. And we were so honored, me and my three brothers, we were so honored to bury our dad in a military grave. And they gave us his flag. And I'm honored to have his flag with us. So I'm not talking so badly about the United States government. I'm proud of my government. We received a certificate for my dad with the presidential seal, with the president's signature. So I'm still honored to be a member of the military. My problem is how badly I've been treated since discharge. And Paul was talking about the 15-year window. I didn't even know there was a 15-year window. I got out in 89. I received my first check from the government in 2021. And it was a struggle and a fight just to get that far. Thank God for Harvard Law. I implore you people to continue doing the work you do because you're saving lives. You're helping us. We need that help. If it were not for Harvard Law, I probably would have never gotten an upgrade. And just like Steve, I had to get all kind of letters. I had to get letters from family members, clergy, politicians, all kind of people. And it still took them a while to get me an upgrade. And if it wasn't for Harvard Law and Goodwin, I think they're called Goodwin, those are some great people. And they fought very hard for me because I was at a standstill. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know what else to do. My hands were tied. So it's a nightmare navigating the system. They don't want you to be successful. Let me put it like that. They want you to give up. They want you to walk away. But with me, you got the wrong guy. I will never stop fighting. So I'm so thankful for you people to help me. But my war is not over. I'm still even today, I am in a battle. I had, what do they call it? Appeal after appeal after appeal after appeal. Then I even had to go through what they call higher level review. I still got denied at the higher level review. Now I'm in an appeal on my higher level review. I don't know if I'm going to get denied on that, but I'm still fighting.
That takes a couple of years.
Yeah, still fighting.
Well, I'm glad you're still fighting and that you have won battles along the way and you are farther along and you deserve that. I'm curious, I'll ask, I guess I'll keep with you, Kevin, but would love to hear from Annie and Paul and Steve as well. I mean, you've talked about how difficult the system is, how it feels designed to sort of prevent you from getting the upgrade, from accessing services. And what are things that you would change about it if you could, whether that's about the military review boards that upgrade discharges or about accessing VA or even about the separation in the first place? So maybe, Kevin, I'll start with you. What's something you wish you could change?
If I knew then what I know now, I would have never joined. That shouldn't be my attitude. If when I told you I could have went to Wentworth, I had a choice to go to Wentworth or go to the military. I chose the military probably because I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, optimistic, young, naive, and I really didn't do anything bad in the military. Not that bad, except chase girls and drink a bit much. I was young. What did I know? So I got in a little bit of trouble. I did. But if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have never joined. And that's unfortunate because I enjoyed my career. I was a medic. I worked in the hospital. I wanted to switch over to work on the AWACS aircraft plane. And the captains interviewed me on the plane and they said, yeah, this guy's ready to go. But I kept getting denied. I kept getting pushback. They didn't want me to go. And it just went downhill from there. So I would just say that the system, I wouldn't have joined had I known what I know now. If I knew it was going to be such a fight, I would have never joined.
Yeah, and I think that's such a something we hear a lot from veterans is that for veterans who do end up getting kicked out with a less than honorable discharge because of the experiences afterwards, it's worse than if you never served in many ways, and that you're really putting your finger on there needs to be something that's done because there are wonderful folks like you who do want to serve. it would have been good to keep you. Annie, what about you? How do you think we could change the system so that it would better serve service members and veterans?
I think it's a little, this question is a little tough because like I said earlier, I know that there are programs that exist, like the transitional assistance program. But because I wasn't there for it, I don't really know what it entails. But I think that from having the experience of just kind of crash landing at home, and not knowing where to go or who to talk to, I think it would have been nice to have this information before I left for home. So, by that I mean not like the generic, if they're going to be standing in front of a classroom of 30 people and saying, hey, if you guys need help, go to the VA, because okay, duh, but what else, right? So it's like it would be a lot easier if they would say, hey, you specifically are going to this state. Here are the people that you are supposed to get in contact with. Like, these are the locations, these are the specific places where you can go, instead of just like, good luck, and that's it. It really just felt like they just kind of dropped you from a high, like just abandoned you, and just kind of like didn't really bother to find out or figure out a way to make sure that you did receive these, final, instructions or whatever. But I feel like this type of stuff should be something that we have access to before we even get home.
Thank you. I just want to ask Steve, I know you've also thought a lot about the transition process, and would love to hear your thoughts on that sort of process of getting out of the military and how it could help better prepare people for life after service.
Yeah, it's fascinating for me because when I first got discharged, just going through the transition, and it's complicated in my circumstance because I had shame due to what had happened to me, but I also had some embarrassment in some ways. I knew I disappointed my parents and my family by getting out early and stuff like that. So, but I did have a very high moment, and months had gone by, and we were at a Christmas party, and one of the people, family friends that was close to my age, didn't know I was around the corner, and he asked my father, how can you let him stay at the house after he went, AWOL and all of that? And my father basically turned and said, I don't really understand what happened. And I never did tell my parents, but I don't know what really happened. But he was avid about not going back, and it wasn't for him. And that makes me proud. Well, that made a difference in my life later on, that my father was not embarrassed by me. So, that was important, and it helped me go on. And I think that's what the discharge can do. Getting the honorable, you finally get to say, you know what? I'm not this bad person that this piece of paper says. I'm just struggling. I'm just going through life as like anybody else. When it comes to the taking this job, when I first came home, I saw my veterans agent. In Massachusetts, every city and town has to have one. So I had one when I first got home, and I went, and he said, well, welcome back. Gave him my DD 214. He says, anything I can do for you? And I'm like, no, I'm looking for work and whatever, and just trying to get back. Okay, well, thanks. And I left. I didn't know when they asked me to take this job that there's all these kind of things we can do to help veterans transition from getting out of the military and then getting to the VA, getting enrolled in healthcare, college options, all the things. Well, now VSOs in Massachusetts, we have to be trained, and we have to know all that stuff. So what I think is, I've spent 20 years hoping VSOs get better and better, and guess what? They are, and they're there. It's just getting the military to say, there's somebody back home that can help you. Go see them. Because after they come home, I've worked on stand downs where there's veterans who are homeless, and I go, you're young, what happened? Da, da, da. And he's like, well, I didn't know where to turn. And I said, well, they didn't tell you anything as you were getting out? Oh, yeah, I had a stack of paper this big, but I wanted to get and see my girlfriend. So he took the stack of paper, put it on the kitchen table, and never opened it. So we need to work really hard with the military to help them connect veterans as they're becoming veterans into the services that are there for them. It's great to have them, but if you never get the veteran to them, what good does it do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what a great point about having someone sort of with welcoming arms to have someone to sort of walk them through the process, because it really is a maze and a bureaucracy, as so many of you have talked about, that having someone there beside you to help you figure out here's where you go makes a huge difference.
I had a veteran who came in after he'd been in for 13 years. He got discharged and he couldn't find a job. He came into my office and he got discharged with a bad discharge for personality disorder. And it was like, okay, personality disorder, that you'd find that early on. You had him 13 years. Well, he went to Iraq. He ended up with PTSD. He did some bad things, but you don't ruin a guy's life for that.
Mhm.
You fixed it. You try to fix.
Absolutely. I just, in our closing minutes, I also want to ask Paul one last question, which is there any message that you would want to share with other veterans who have been in similar situations as the four of you, who got out with a discharge before they anticipated, or even when they anticipated, but not with the discharge that they were hoping for? What do you wish that sort of you knew in 2006, or sort of any message to the other veterans who are navigating these systems?
Yeah, 2000, so I was discharged 2006. I had just returned from my second combat deployment, my third overseas deployment. I was counting down the days on that last deployment. It was not a fun one. And I returned and started my processing out. And through the processing, that was the first time I was ever aware that you needed a particular conduct score to get a honorable discharge.
Mhm.
And at that point, the Marine Corps was more trying to retain me. And it came to the point where they offered me an extension or a contract. Um, rather than getting out. And I just mentally wasn't in the proper headspace to do a third combat deployment. Um, I mean, I was very fortunate just that, I ended up back in Boston. And even the Boston Fire Department looked during the hiring process, and they looked at my DD 214 and said, "Oh, you served your entire 4 years." What happened? And I explained, after the first deployment, I kind of got in trouble. I was court-martialed, did my time, and then they sent me back to Iraq. And then I came back, and then they tried to keep me in. And I was fortunate that, this is 2007, and the economy was not doing very well anywhere. Jobs were not easy to come by, but I was fortunate that the Boston Fire Department was hiring at that time.
Mhm.
Um, so that kind of gave me, a profession that I worked in. And it was through, getting into the veterans community and finding these people that will help you through the bureaucracy. It's getting better than it once was. And I think it's far from perfect. The system has been designed truly, to kind of wear people down, and eventually they'll either just give up.
Mhm.
And that's, it's a sad state where this, people that are fighting and serving and dying for our country have to go through these circumstances. Anyone that, takes that oath and, serves in that uniform deserves, the respect from the system that it's trying to serve for. And I don't think that's 100% right now.
you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think also for the message that there really is a community and there are resources, and that there's so much that those of us who have the privilege of working with veterans can do to try to help folks who need help get to the resources that they need. So thank you for sharing that. I also want to note that for anyone who's listening who isn't sure where to go for help on accessing discharge upgrade resources, or who knows a veteran who might be in need of a discharge upgrade, we're hoping to reach out through the registration link after this program to share some resources that people can find, because we know how difficult it is to find someone who can help when you really need help. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to the DAV Charitable Service Trust and the DAV leadership for supporting our clinic and sponsoring this event. To our co-sponsors, the Harvard Law School Armed Forces Association, and especially thank you so much to Steve, Annie, Kevin, and Paul for joining us here today, for sharing your stories. Really, it is an honor to get to hear from you, and I'm so grateful for you. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Have a nice
Dana.
day.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, everyone. Don't give up.